Welcome to Muffin Talk. Tom, you mentioned a few times the Didache. Can you tell us more about it? What is that?
The word Didache literally means the training. It's the Greek word for training. And you have to imagine, we think of the early church as having things like the letters of Paul, and then later having documents like the Gospels. But quite apart from these, the letters of Paul were occasional things. They were occasioned by particular needs. And the Gospels are the written down recordings of gospelers who were coming to give a performance, an overview of the whole vision of Christian faith. But the people in the communities, in the local churches, scattered all across the Mediterranean world, they needed something that would be their training. And the training began as something very simple, and it kept developing. And when it was still in a simple stage in the 1st and 2nd centuries, it was something that every disciple of Jesus actually learned off by heart. Now, we knew that this existed because we had lots of references. They had learned the training, and they had read the training, and they had copied the training, and we knew. But everyone said, well, what was it like? And people said, well, it probably included the Lord's Prayer. Yeah, well, so much. You don't have to be brilliant to make that guess. It probably included something like some sort of variant on the 10 Commandments. Well, again, you wouldn't have to be very bright to make that guess. But then, in 1873, a brilliant young Greek monk was working in a library in Constantinople, now Istanbul, cataloguing books. And the funny thing about this particular librarian was he had already spent a couple of years in Germany, and indeed he had there met all of the great editors. So as he was going through the book, his mind was alerted to be looking out for unusual things, and he discovered a copy of the Didache, that reflects the way the Didache was used in Greek around 80 AD. And this is the most precious document we have from the Christians from the 1st century that's not in the New Testament, and it's even more precious because all of the documents in the New Testament were special documents. This is the ordinary document. This gives us an insight into what was actually happening in a local church at the time. And so, for instance, it's got a very detailed list of do's and don'ts. And then we thought, well, that's very unusual. And then we found in 1947, when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, we thought, now we have a copy in Aramaic of the same thing that we find in a Christian document in Greek, and we realized that an awful lot of the moral practice that the Christians were putting forward to these Greek converts to the religion of Jesus, wasn't yet called Christianity, in the middle of the 1st century, they're actually using a document that was being used for training little Jewish boys and girls back in Palestine, which we had also lost, and we only found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the other interesting thing was that it presented Christian life as two ways. It begins with the mythical vision that is the end of the book of Deuteronomy, that Moses is offering the people two ways, a way of life and a way of death. And he says, if you go the way of death, bad things. If you go the way of life, you come into the whole dynamic life of God. So this was the interesting. The Didache was not just do's and don'ts, but it was a whole vision of Christian life as entering a community, and a community on a pilgrim path. And so, for instance, the major development in Christian theology in the 20th century of seeing Christian life as a road, as a pilgrimage, as a discipleship, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, all of these ideas received a major boost from the discovery of the Didache in the late 19th century. And then, of course, it had other things. Yes, they were right. The guess was right. There is a text of the Lord's Prayer in the standard Greek reciting form that people would know it from the Gospel of Matthew. But there's a section on baptism, how to baptize, what baptism means. There's a big section on the Eucharist, and indeed it gives you a text of how you can celebrate a Eucharist at any meal.
So how big is that?
It takes 22 minutes to read.
22 minutes?
Yes.
So it should be in every Christian household?
Well, yeah, but lots of things should be in every Christian household. The interesting thing is it also has loads of rules on how to deal with visitors to a church. So, for instance, if a missionary comes from another church, such as someone preaching a gospel, well, give them food for 3 days. If they stay for a fortnight, they may be taking advantage of you. They should be getting on the road. There's lots of stuff that every Christian needs to know about how to live, how to do, how to pray. But there's also a very practical section, and I find the practical section the most interesting of all. It takes 22 minutes because over the years I've got students to read it in Greek, and I've collected the average timings, and some will be faster and some will be slower, and the average is 22 minutes. And actually it was learnt off by heart.
So it's certainly also available in English now. It's
been available in English since 1885. There you are. And I've done a translation of it about 10 years ago, so you can use my translation. And also it's somewhere free on the web, my translation. You can go and find it.
Thank you very much.
So that's the Didache.
Out there, heroic peace is calling. In the bonds of love we meet. For the world, a new day dawning and shine.